If we can only truly begin to move forward and begin to heal by embracing our own victim story, we're never going to get out from underneath of it as long as we're weaponizing it.
Absolutely. And a beautiful, beautiful quality, particularly of radical forgiveness, but for anything and anyone, you don't have to share it with the person that's hurt you. And that's the powerful part, because just by putting that out to the universe, acknowledging it, having it witnessed and validated, that alone is going to help shift the energy between you and that person.
Welcome to the Grand Rising Experience. What if I told you that everything you desire lives inside of your capacity to forgive? Join me, Nicole Connor, your host and founder of Grand Rising, as I follow my curiosity and journey deep into the art and science of self-forgiveness to not only answer, but embody one simple yet profoundly existential question. What is self-forgiveness? I believe that the experience of seeking answers to this one question has the power to unlock the essence of your own grand rising. A powerful reconciliation and reconnection of body, soul, and purpose. Walk beside me as I commit to learning out loud on a quest to better understand what patterns and cycles keep being reborn, whose only known medicine is forgiveness. What healing wisdom gets unlocked within our body as we practice the art of self-forgiveness and self-acceptance? Why is self-forgiveness a requirement of love and compassion? And how do you cultivate a practice of self-forgiveness that has the power to heal, honor, and liberate yourself, ancestors, and generations to come? So, if you are ready to turn your mess into your medicine, welcome home. Your journey won't be easy, but I promise it will be worth it. Now let's dive in.
Marina has been through many struggles in her life, all of which had a greater purpose. Learning this has helped her grow and become a person who refuses to live in victim land, and she wants that for you too. Her desire to share what she has learned through this journey is an intention to make an impact on others. With this, she aims to achieve results for her clients that create the best versions of themselves. She does this by sharing her powerful tools of radical forgiveness, Reiki, and breathwork. Marina is passionate about helping her clients release old stories and stuck emotions that no longer serve them so they can start their journey to freedom and harmony. She currently offers a membership where women can gather monthly in a safe space to share and gain support. She also has upcoming retreats where you will ensure to experience transformation. So with that, I would love to welcome Marina George to the Grand Rising Experience. We're just going to dive right into the deep end. I would love to know, and my audience, just to get to know a little bit more about you and how you have come into this work.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I'm so honored to be here. So I started a business where I wanted to help spiritual entrepreneurs run retreats because I knew the power of retreats. I had attended a few in the past. I had the background of event planning. And so I had a coach friend that said she was running a retreat and she wanted my support. So I was super excited about that. And she hadn't invited me to an event where another coach was going to teach us how to run powerful spiritual retreats. So I went as a participant, just thinking I was note-taking and gathering all the information. And the facilitator had another idea in mind. So she had me participate. And one of the exercises was to share your why. And again, I had just started this new business like a month in at max. And I said, well, I don't know. I mean, I know my why. I want to serve other people, but how do I express this in a little speech to the group? So we did an exercise. I was, looking back at different points in my life and I just couldn't come up with a speech. So I said, I'm just going to start with my childhood story. So I touched on the fact that my mom and my dad, just what I shared about them, traditional versus eclectic. And I was a bit of both. But then all of a sudden, I started to have visions of my childhood. And the first thing that popped into mind was my dad opening the utensil drawer, taking out a spoon and beating my mother. and my mother screaming and telling me to get in the car and all of that. So as you can imagine, all of these emotions just started to rise and come up to the surface. My voice started shaking. I could feel the vibration in my body of all those old stuck emotions coming up to be healed. And I just kept going. So then I talked about how I was, looking for love. Actually, my dad passed away when I was 7, just a couple of years after I witnessed that abuse. And then after that, I started searching for love in all the wrong places. I didn't have a male figure in my life. So, got in with the wrong crowds, did some things I wasn't proud of as a teenager, all that fun stuff. And then, knew I needed to run away from my hometown and go to the big city as soon as I finished school. So I arrived in the big city of Toronto at the age of 21, thinking I knew so much and wanting to be a model and do all these fun, amazing things. But again, I was connected to that not so great crowd that didn't want the best for me. So started to kind of go down a path where people were taking advantage of me and using me and taking from me, which just kept building on that lack of self-love and self-care. And so through that, I met my husband, and he was a guy that was kind of quiet, stable, stayed at home, didn't like to party, didn't like that scene. So I said, wow, somebody who actually wants to stay with me. And I shared all of this at that retreat. And I realized that everything was working in perfect divine order, and they were all connected to each other based on what I had witnessed and experienced as a child. And so essentially radical forgiveness happened in that moment, which I didn't know at the time. And the facilitator brought me up on stage and interviewed me in front of all of these women while I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I was so weak and vulnerable. And what are they going to think of me? When she asked them to give feedback, and the comments were, you're so powerful, you don't know your own strength. You are, need to be sharing this story. So that really catapulted me forward on this journey. And it was so empowering. And my body language changed and everything shifted. And I came back home and wrote out a 2.5-day retreat for myself, not the coach that I had gone there with. And unfortunately, I had to express to her that I can't support you anymore. I have to do this for myself. And sometimes that's a difficult conversation because we do want to help and support other people. But in that moment, I knew I needed to do this for me. So as the universe does, a month or two later, somebody posted something about radical forgiveness on social media. And I was like, what is that? So I explored it and realized that is exactly what just happened to me at the retreat, but in a simplified format where I can get certified and people will actually want to work with me because I'll be somebody and I'll have credentials to show for that, because at that time, my self-worth was lacking. So the first thing I did was sign up for that course, and that began that journey.
Thank you first for sharing that with us. And a huge part of this platform is built around the idea that it is through the sharing of stories, not the provision of solutions, that really facilitates the change. If someone's coming to me saying, I have a solution for you, I want to know your story first.
Absolutely.
And I love that you spontaneously experienced this idea of radical forgiveness. And that's actually what kickstarted your journey. It wasn't the other way around. It wasn't a checklist. It was the emotion. It was the release of it that really brought it into the forefront for you. And I think that is so powerful that you were able to experience that and also highlight, when you were brought onto the stage, you highlighted the power that happens when we give ourselves permission to voice our story and allow others to bear witness to it.
Yes.
That's where miracles start to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I knew that I was the common denominator in that entire story. So I had to look within to say, what was my role in this? And so that is another really powerful thing, because the first step in radical forgiveness is the victim story. And that was a huge realization to say, okay, I'm coming from this blame perspective, blaming my parents, my ex, all the friends I had, that they were the ones that did that. But I had that realization in that moment that actually I was creating this for some reason. So that was a really powerful turning point for me as well.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience in 2017, where I came to the realization that I was the common denominator of my life. And I could sit there and I could blame every situation in my realm on other people. I could label it as toxic. But until I recognized and accepted that I was that common denominator and that I was resonating with the toxicity, it wasn't a specific person. It's not a state of being. It's that place of resonance, right?
Yes.
So until I could get radically honest with myself and really start to own that, nothing was ever going to change. And those lessons were going to continue to get repeated until I understood it. So I thank you for highlighting that it really did start with accepting that this is where I am right now, but it doesn't have to be where I go or who I am tomorrow.
Absolutely. And that began the journey of my own self-healing. Obviously, I was doing self-healing for many years, thanks to my mom exposing me to many modalities. But I really started to dig deep at that time and went inward. And it was life-changing.
Yeah, I really want to dig in on what you said about having to own and accept your victim story. It's a really touchy word.
Yes.
And it can be used to heal, or it can be used to shame.
Absolutely.
And I'm finding right now, kind of in the lexicon of words that are popping around in our society and our culture right now, there's 4 trigger words that have really been bothering me. And I'm going to add this as my 5th. And those are narcissistic, manipulation, gaslighting, toxic, and victim.
Yes.
Now I'm going to add victim in there because I believe the 4 that preceded victim are a byproduct of not being able to self-validate and embrace that victim story. And when you don't give yourself the grace to be able to do that, you start outsourcing it and expecting everyone else to give it to you. And it creates these dynamics that become toxic, but it's not necessarily a reflection of who you are. It's just that state of resonance that you're in and what you keep attracting into your life. And by not accepting that victim story, it almost becomes, we spoke about this before, like a spiritual bypassing. And how do you go through the rest of the steps, and how do you even move forward if you're refusing to kind of almost pass go, if you will, and not dig into that? So from a perspective of radical forgiveness, can you give us how victimhood is defined inside of that arena? Because when I started diving into that work with one of the, I guess, pioneers of the work, Colin Tipping, when I started reading how he was describing victimhood, it's so beautiful because it really does take away the shame of it and put you in a more empowering place to begin to start to self-validate and be able to accept.
Absolutely. So essentially, we're always wanting to look at our reality as a duality, right? Everything in the world is a duality. So we have the world of humanity because we're humans, and we have the world of spirituality because we are spiritual beings having the human experience. And so when we approach life from that perspective, we're not expected to live in either world 100% of the time. It's just not reality. And so the premise of radical forgiveness is essentially our souls made a beautiful agreement in another dimension before they entered Earth to say, I want to go to Earth so I can experience separation, which is a duality of the opposite of love and oneness. And so we agreed to come here in order to have this dance and play together in order to experience separation for our soul's growth. So we want to understand that when we're coming from a victim, it's not coming from that traditional state of victim. We're just acknowledging where we're at in this moment, essentially. And there's nothing and no shame or blame on that. We have to bring it up in order to heal it. We have to acknowledge it and have that awareness. We can't allow it to just go under the surface because that's how disease and not healthy things start to unfold and happen in our lives. So we're looking at this victim to say, this is where I'm at. This is how I felt in the world of humanity. Let's start with that, because that's where we start with traditional forgiveness and radical forgiveness, which is so powerful. And then we do a couple of steps together with both theories, and then we move into radical forgiveness, which we'll get into deeper. But essentially, we're just meeting you where you're at, which I love. And then eventually we'll give you some new perspectives to look on that. So there is no shame. We're holding a safe, supportive space when you're sharing that, because in order to share that story, we need to connect with the emotions and feelings that are underneath that, and then take them to the next level to move through it. I don't know if that answers your question, but there's so much to it that it's not just a simple answer, but just looking at it from a human's perspective and just embracing that without shame or guilt.
It's really important, I believe, for people to hear that and like really hear it, because one of the byproducts of victimhood is not feeling heard and not feeling seen. And when we get into that space, and usually in conflict with in relationship, a lot of breakdowns that happen in conflicts with relationship is that we don't hear the other person, or we feel as though they are withholding from us.
Yes.
But in that not feeling heard or that feeling of withholding, we're preventing that other person from expressing themselves. And when those conversations begin to happen, if the expression, because we only ever hear and experience life through our own lens and our own reality and our own perspective, it's really hard to step outside of that. And I don't think anyone is an expert at that. But what you can begin to do is just kind of start to garner that awareness that when you're in these conversations, that the other person who is attempting to express themselves to you, you might not like it. It's going to rub all your rough edges.
Yes.
But how you respond in that moment can tell you so much. But it can also start to further and deepen this idea of victimhood if we start resulting to shaming, or even worse, using the word victim as a shaming label.
Yes.
And that I've been hearing it so much recently, where people are saying, stop acting like a victim, or you're acting like such a victim, like it's this shaming place. But if we can only truly begin to move forward and begin to heal by embracing our own victim story, we're never going to get out from underneath of it as long as we're weaponizing it.
Absolutely. And a beautiful, beautiful quality, particularly of radical forgiveness, but for anything and anyone, you don't have to share it with the person that's hurt you.
No.
And that's the powerful part, because just by putting that out to the universe, acknowledging it, having it witnessed and validated, that alone is going to help shift the energy between you and that person.
Oh, 100%. And it is like the act of forgiveness. And maybe we should dive into that a little bit of what is forgiveness, because I think there's a lot of mystery around it, because it is something that is often expected when we're in conflict, that forgiveness is expected, but it's outsourced and rarely ever embodied.
Yes.
It's not something that we understand or that we're able to do for ourselves. So in your experience, what is forgiveness?
Well, it's not letting bygones be bygones. It's not just accepting what someone did and letting it go. It's much more than that. Essentially, it is looking at that common denominator and realizing why we are creating these situations in our life, and acknowledging that they are generally, well, again, going back to, we are coming here together to do this dance. So we are doing it for our soul's growth and evolution. So essentially, nothing wrong ever happened to me. It happened for me, not to me. So that's number one. But it's just realizing that it's all coming back to self, and realizing that we are all one, and this is happening for a higher purpose. It's really simple, but very complex at the same time. So when you go through this process and you understand the principles, you just start living from that place. So you stop attracting these situations. And when you do, because we're human and we're going to be in that world of humanity, you have the tools to shift out of that much quicker. So it just essentially allows you a sense of freedom. You hear, the path to forgiveness, you end up with freedom. And it's hard to understand and explain. Like, people don't always know what that means, but it's just not putting so much charge every time something comes and happens to you, because you look at it from a new perspective and you just become free and just allow it to happen, acknowledge it, and work through it. And it's so beautiful. I'm getting a little deeper, but I just feel like forgiveness is I think you should add it to your list, actually, because it's one of those trigger words that people just have a really hard time with, because we just think that we have to accept what somebody did to us was okay and move through it and suck it up buttercup. And it's not that way at all. It comes back to self each and every time. And it is just a beautiful, beautiful teaching. It's so empowering when you start to look at it from a different perspective, because again, you just don't stay in victim land. But I just encourage everyone to just start exploring it. There's so many different modalities or methodologies and just explanations. And there's going to be one that resonates with you, but they all come back to the same conclusion. And so I have a hard time answering that simple question. I really do, because it's so much more than the textbook version for me.
Absolutely. It's so nuanced. And I think a phrase that a lot of people would be familiar with, especially in the forgiveness realm, is, I will forgive, but I will never forget.
Yes.
And that's a dangerous place. And that means you haven't forgiven.
That's right.
You're still carrying.
You're still holding on. There's energy still attached to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for me, it's this idea that we live in such a punitive society where we are seeking for other people to pay the price and really receive the consequence of their actions. And I was kind of riffing on this the other day about the idea of justice, that we're always seeking justice, especially right now in the climate that we're in. Everybody wants justice, regardless of where you're at. But if you really break down justice, it's just is. So what if we moved from this idea of this external punitive punishment that we're looking at always exacting on other people because we're looking for atonement. Mm-hmm. And we start understanding that it's not justice, it just is. Everything just is.
Yes,
and we can remove the charge from it and begin to go inward and figure out, how did I bring this into my world? That we always enter into relationship with someone else. It's never a sole proposition.
Right.
There's always two parties.
Yes.
And there's a huge difference between accepting responsibility and accepting blame. And that's where we start getting into the crux, I believe, of forgiveness, because you can be fully responsible for yourself and accept that responsibility, but you don't have to start accepting the blame. And I think that's where we start getting into the nuances of forgiveness and victimhood, and how those words start to pop up inside of conversations can tell you a lot about where you are on your journey with that.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
So if someone came to you and said, hey, Marina, teach me about forgiveness, where do you start with them?
The victim story.
The victim story. So what is that?
I want them to know that I'm here to hold that safe space for them and to be able to just fully express it from whatever place that needs to come from. If it's anger, sadness, swearing, any of that. We start with radical forgiveness. It's a simplified format. It's a worksheet that we work through. There's 20 steps, and I guide them through all of that. So I just want them to come as they are and guide and support them through the process.
And what's on the other side of your victim story?
Mm-hmm.
And why can we not bypass that?
Yeah, beautiful question. So the next step after we share it is acknowledging the feelings and the emotions that are attached to that story, because that's, to keep those feelings and emotions, like I said, bottled up or not expressed or not acknowledged, not even knowing what is connected to that, is where the illnesses and the resentment and the anger, all that stuff starts to happen and continue to show up and affect us on our daily life. So we need to acknowledge how it makes us feel and what the feelings are. And sometimes people will have a huge release. Sometimes people just acknowledge, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was really sad about that situation too. I just thought I was mad about it. And so we bring that up to the surface just to, again, acknowledge, have it witnessed, and so it can start to move through us and that we're not holding on to it anymore. And then we take the victim, the emotions, and then we start to look at it where we slowly start to move from traditional, because that's kind of what we do with traditional forgiveness, right? We blame and then we say, I'm really upset about this. And we just kind of say, oh, well, yeah, I know they were going through a lot and I guess I'll let it go and move on and whatever. And then that's it. But you feel that, right? It's still there.
Yeah, I think we get into dangerous territory when we excuse behavior because we understand someone's wounding.
So this is the beautiful spot where we start transitioning from that traditional forgiveness into radical forgiveness. So we kind of have compassion and we understand why they may have done that. We start breaking down why it may have happened and how it made us feel and all of that. And then we start to move in to say, oh, wow, I am just open and willing. That's the beautiful part of radical forgiveness. You only have to be open and willing to it. You don't have to believe it, understand it, or agree with it. In fact, we want you to get out of your analytical mind and just do the steps, right? Yeah. And then we start to say, wow, I'm open to the fact that maybe this person came into my life to show me something about myself. We also separate the fact from the interpretation. So my father died, right? It's just the fact of what happened. But for me, based on my experiences, I thought, oh, he abandoned me. So that's just my interpretation and my experience of, my mom not giving me food when I wanted it. These experiences just keep building up. And the most profound one is generally done between the ages of 1 and 7 in our lives, right? So that will carry through all of the other situations showing up and have that connection. So when the beautiful part is when you heal this one story, you're going to heal all of those years of those patterns that were connected to abandonment and not feeling worthy or good enough and safe enough to be me. So we bring that up to bring that awareness to us, and then we connect it to the limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves. Like, I'm not worthy. It's not safe to be me, all those things. And then we start to move in and really look at it from that higher perspective to say, wow, thank you so much, Dad, for coming into my life, being this beautiful healing angel, this beautiful teacher, to take me down this journey and this path so that I can look at this from a different perspective so my soul could grow and evolve and be an amazing coach to now serve so many other people. Like, it's incredible what this experience has led me to.
Good. That's beautiful. And you definitely touched on something as well, an emotion that I think we undervalue in this process, and that's grief. And I've noticed, especially over the last 2 years, is that the fear, the anger, the rage, the emotions that tend to lead to conflict that require forgiveness,
yes,
are usually underpinned by deep grief.
Yes. And the grief would be in the column of sad.
Yeah.
So when we are grieving, it's connected to a simple emotion, a feeling of sadness.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we're just not in tune with, because very much like you're not allowed to be a victim.
Yes.
Victimhood is attached to that grief, to that sadness. And we don't allow ourselves to go through grief, even just in our basic model of society, where if someone passes away, if you're working a corporate job, you get 2 days off, maybe 3 if you're lucky. I don't even want to get started on the way that we bury our loved ones and the funeral process. That's a whole other topic, but it really does impede that grieving process. And when you are in a position as well where you have such a huge loss at such a young age, where you're not capable of really understanding that grief or processing that grief, it will come out as all of these other emotions throughout the rest of your life. But it's like, can you get back to the grief or the sadness or the victim story, as you've said, to be able to really start to tune in and to process that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Powerful.
Essentially, over the past 2 years, we've been met with our own mortality. And I think people are feeling the squeeze of it, even if they can't put the words to it. How has that shifted what you've been encountering through your clients?
People are just seeking and yearning. They don't even know where to begin in some ways. And it tends to be people, like, I always seem to attract people with a similar pattern, because the universe always gives you what you've experienced, which is so beautiful. And there is generally that underlying thread regardless. But, before I was attracting a lot of other spiritual coaches or healers or people that are very open and very aware. Now I'm getting more people from corporate, more people that are, they've always had a bit of a spiritual component. Like I've done yoga, I've done meditation, but they're really seeking and searching, and they know there's something more than what this reality is showing us at these last couple of years. And they're just reassessing their lives. What's really important? Do I really need to stay in this toxic job? Do I really need to stay with this narcissistic partner? It's time for a change, and I just don't know where to even begin. So they're just reaching out, something that, I say or a colleague could say could resonate, and they just want to have a conversation. We're just starting with that. And sometimes it's a little bit slower in the process, but just coming and asking questions, I love that so much. I love just having conversations and connecting with people just where they're at. And I put no pressure on anyone. And I just kind of give them some food for thought based on what they've shared with me and what they're experiencing. And they may find something else that resonates and they may come back, but they are just so thankful to be able to just show up as they are, which is my number one goal in what I offer, is just to offer a safe, non-judgmental space for others. And they can just show up as they are. And they just want a place to be able to share what they're experiencing because they're trying to process it. And again, going back to that analytical mind, like being in our heads so much, trying to figure everything out. I got to figure this out. How do I do this? What do I do? We don't always have to figure everything out. We just have to be. It just is justice. So it's just having that support. And that's really my goal. It's whether it's radical forgiveness, they just want to come for a beautiful Reiki healing, whatever it is, it's just to connect with that emotion that they're feeling in that moment and give it a little bit of a shift in energy. And that's why I've kind of started calling myself an emotional release facilitator, because regardless of what I'm doing, I want people to acknowledge that, because we talked about that spiritual bypass and how easy it is for people to avoid. And, just come to me, close your eyes, take a deep breath. And I just want you to connect with that emotion that you're feeling in this moment. And we'll do something to move through it. Even if it's just for a couple of hours, it's going to help you feel better. Obviously, we're human. We're going to keep feeling emotions and we're going to keep having feelings. And we're not telling you to get rid of them forever and always. It's just to take that charge out of them, as you speak about, and to know how to manage and deal with them in a healthy way that serves you and others.
Absolutely. And I love that you're kind of shifting the language as well to the facilitation, because no one can do it for you.
Absolutely not.
No one can do it for you. It's for myself, I've shifted more into the label of a storyteller, if you will, and using the idea of story to be able to impact people through the stories of other people, and just to be that conduit for people to see themselves in others, because that's ultimately all we're ever doing. But you had mentioned that earlier that you do breath work, you do Reiki, you do a bunch of different modalities in facilitating this. If someone is wondering, do I need radical forgiveness in my life? I think deep down in your gut, you probably do. But what are some of the other symptoms that you see bubbling up in other ways that people come to you that hint at them needing to go a little bit deeper into that work?
So many things. So one thing, like I always say, come with a situation or a relationship that you're struggling with at the moment. And as soon as I say that to somebody, even if it's somebody who cut you off in traffic, we all have those, right? And sometimes people are doing their work and they feel like they're in a good place. But if they keep repeating the story or keep bringing up that situation, they haven't let it go completely and they haven't moved through it. I don't want to say necessarily heal it, right? Because we don't always just heal it, but we shift the perspective, we change that. So if you notice people that are constantly, even if you see them and then you're with them, somebody who's in your life frequently, right? And you're with them and they went through a situation at work and they're talking about it and they're frustrated. And then like, okay, let's go to this retreat and we did it and all this stuff. And then they come back and they're still talking about it. They're still talking about it. Just even it's casually, we know that they need to dig deeper and they need to get to the root cause of that. They haven't fully acknowledged it. Another one would be that, again, they're seeking and they know they need something, but they don't know what it is. But a really beautiful thing, I love to offer breathwork as kind of an intro to me and my work. I kind of started it as the opposite, to say, oh, let's do it after the radical forgiveness session, because it takes the remnants of all that energy that came up to be healed and it's integrating it. But I kind of love doing it backwards. Come to the breathwork session. You don't have to speak. You just lay there. I mean, this breath part is a little bit of a spiritual workout, but do have a lot of relaxing at the end, and I guide you. And the realizations that people get, because I have a forgiveness component to the sessions that I offer, obviously, because it's connected to that. They just can't even imagine. And I don't want to get into it because I just highly encourage everybody to try it just once, because it's so powerful that you can't even explain it. But the realizations, the people, the emotions, the visions, whatever they get, the feelings that come up, they 9 times out of 10 are completely surprised. It comes out of nowhere. And they're like, whoa, I have more work to do. They don't realize it. So it's a really powerful tool to allow people to kind of use it as a gauge to check in on where they're at. I firmly believe as long as we're on the earth, we are here as it's a learning environment. It's a school for us. And we're always going to continue that journey until we move on to another dimension or somewhere else, but whatever your belief is. But for me, like, obviously, I am absolutely not healed. I have lots of world of humanity things that come into my life, and I love using my tools to help shift the energy so I just don't stay stuck in them as long, but it still happens. And to your point as well, healer. I don't call myself a healer. I'm not a healer. You're healing yourself. I am a conduit as well. That's how I look at it as well. Just providing you with a different perspective, tools, an idea maybe you never heard or thought of before, and holding that space energetically for you to be able to feel safe enough to do the work. But moving through this stuff, it does take work. And when I see people doing the work, it just warms my heart so much, because they're the ones putting all the energy and effort into it and being open to it and doing it for themselves. And it's so beautiful because their body language starts to change, miracles start happening. And I say this all the time, but miracles, when you go do the work, miracles begin to happen. It doesn't mean like a big bolt of lightning is coming and God is falling out of the sky. What do you want? It means very simple things. It means that toxic coworker moved out of country and is no longer at your work environment. It means that your mom calls you out of the blue and says, I've really been reflecting and I want to apologize for that incident that happened with us 10 years ago. These are the miracles we're talking about. And then you start attracting the most amazing people and situations into your life, because you're not stuck in that victim story anymore. So you're not projecting and putting that out there to get it back. You're putting out the work that you've been doing, like, I am worthy. I am okay to be me, all those beautiful things. And then you start to attract people and situations that give that back to you and reciprocate it. So it's really exciting.
I think anyone who's ever experienced what you just described will absolutely understand the power of how your external reality immediately starts to shift the moment you take responsibility for you. And it's not always easy and it's not always comfortable. And sometimes it means that relationships will fall away. It doesn't mean everything is going to come back and be beautiful and sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes there is loss on the other side of that as well. But the power of having these tools is it allows you to move through that season of your life with more grace and ease and less self-deprecation and blame. It can be really easy when you're on this journey, when everything starts to fall away, to put on the brakes and go, whoa, I'm not ready for this.
Totally.
I'm not ready for this. What's definitely attracted me to this modality and why I find so much power in it and why it's resonating so deeply is because it allows you to go through those seasons of your life and be okay, because everything just is.
Yes.
There's no attachment.
Yes. And guess what? Even beautiful situations sometimes have an ending.
Yes.
So I was just chatting with a friend last evening, and we were talking. We have a very special sacred sisterhood, and there's 5 of us in that sisterhood, and we are all looking and reassessing where we're at with the growth that we've had the last couple of years in these trying times and what's really important to us. And we would have always said, we're staying here. This is where our community is. Some of us don't have immediate family in the area. And so this is our community. This is our sisterhood. But now we're exploring the world and like, maybe I want to end up here because this is the environment I want for myself. And we are realizing we're okay with that. It was a season. We're together. We'll always have a special, beautiful spiritual bond, and we're available for each other whenever we want. But because we are constantly evolving and growing, the circumstances in our life may not serve us any longer. We've learned what we needed from that, and we're moving forward. And then we're making room to bring new people in. It doesn't mean we have to forget those people. It's just a different phase of life. And so to just embrace that and feel really joyful about it is really, really empowering.
That's beautiful, because space and time, it's a construct in our built environment. And when it enters into relationships, it can be a very destructive and disruptive force if you don't have a comfortability with it.
Yes.
And it shows you all your victim stories too. Totally. When you're in relationship and looking for space and time. And I find how you are met by that request, how that request gets met, and then how the parties within that tend to try and bridge the space and time. Can tell you a lot about the work that you need to do. And I speak from a place of being both the perpetrator and the receiver of needing space and not allowing it.
Totally. And we're all going to have a different experience and the way that we express it. And maybe in this moment, we are open, but then another one could be like, no, that can't happen. So just to your point. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That quick karma, that'll teach you a lot. And I think that's a beautiful thing too about this work is it does allow you to see, if you're really willing to look and you're willing to be courageous and vulnerable enough to do it, you can see where you have been on both sides of the spectrum. Totally. And I find when you've been really inside the victim story for too long, it can be really hard to see that. But the moment you end up on the other side of it and you can now witness yourself inside of someone else, it really allows you to do this deep reflection and self-evaluation to determine, do I want to move that way? Because it's not often that we get to experience ourselves. No. But the moment we do, man, that can move mountains really quickly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When somebody cuts you off in traffic next time, say, what is that triggering inside of me? What do I need to look at within myself? You can still swear if you need to get it out of your body and bring up that anger, but just try to self-reflect.
That's a really good point, actually, because sometimes we tend to think of forgiveness as being like grandiose gestures and for really large events in our life, yes. But it's not. It's when you're waiting in line at the grocery store and they're taking too long, yes. Or you're getting cut off in traffic or you're on hold on the phone. Totally. That's definitely moments where we can really reflect and pay attention to our triggers.
And then send gratitude at the end when it's all over and done with.
Yes, you made it through. You survived.
Right. Exactly.
Excellent. You started this conversation off talking about retreats.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about what a retreat with Marina is like?
Absolutely. The number one theme always is a safe, supportive, non-judgmental space. So you'll feel that as soon as you come in. But essentially, we come in, we get to know each other, we allow everyone time to share, feel safe and supported. And I like to kind of allow people to just come in and share where they're at and why they've come. What are they here for? What are they hoping to experience? And it's incredible, the synchronicities and the connections, because the universe just brings the appropriate people every time to these events. Like the two that sat on at my last retreat in May, the two ladies that sat on the couch to my left, I just have this vision. There were so many things that they could learn and experience together. That was like just synchronistic. It was incredible. And then the other two ladies, it was almost like a mother and daughter wound that they had, and they were able to be those mirrors for each other. So it was so powerful. So basically we come in and share and connect and get to know each other. And then the next morning, I love to start off, I bring in a beautiful yoga instructor, and everybody's just connected with their bodies, and we have nourishing, healing food. And then we go through the radical forgiveness process. So I love doing it as a group more. Like, I love one-on-ones. I love working with people, but I love doing it as a group because we share with the group, and then we learn from each other. And then I never thought of it that way. And, everybody's a teacher in that environment, not just me. Again, I'm facilitating, I'm guiding, and, keeping people on task and track. But the other people in the group are offering so many juicy nuggets that other people can benefit from. And it's just really powerful. And then we do like some physical exercises. So I add a little bit of Marina into the radical forgiveness process, essentially. So we do that for an entire day. And then we end off integrating all that beautiful positive energy we've just shifted, and do a fun dance party generally. And we do a release ceremony and burn some stuff and just get rid of that. And then on the final day, we start off with a breathwork session just to, again, connect inward. And this is when I did use it after radical forgiveness. So taking any of the remnants away and just letting you leave on that final day feeling lighter and brighter. And then we do a super fun radical manifestation exercise to start creating the life that you desire and become and embody the person and the life that you want to see for yourself. We've had someone do tours of their new wellness center. We had people who wanted to become artists, and they're like showing us their work imaginatively, but it's so fun. And we do lots of stuff. And the sisterhood that's created is magical. And we're still connecting and chatting from the one in May, particularly in a group chat, and they're connecting with each other. So it's just a beautiful thing.
That's
I'm
beautiful.
honored to have that opportunity to do that. And I'm doing even more next year. So I can't wait.
Oh, that's exciting. When is your next retreat? Do you know?
So the one that I have booked at the moment is May 2023. If an opportunity presents, I may do one sooner, but at the moment, the next one is definitely scheduled as May 2023. And then I have one in the fall of 2023. And then I'm hoping to do one in Nova Scotia, my home province, yay, and potentially internationally in Mexico or somewhere in that area as well next fall. So we shall see how everything unfolds.
Wonderful. I'm excited. We've spoken. If you come to Nova Scotia,
Yes.
I will be there.
Yay.
I will be there. And I love that it is this co-creative process, and that you are aware that it's a co-creative process.
Yes.
Because I've been in situations where when you are in a room with strangers, magic happens.
Absolutely.
When you're in a space where you can just be vulnerable and honest and not self-censor.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings me to a question. Do you recommend, if you're doing these group sessions, that you come with other people that you know? Or do you think it's more powerful to come individually?
I think it's a personal choice, to be honest. So we had two sisters that came, and they were in a place that they could be completely themselves and open. I have another client who I know doesn't want to do it with some friends. And so she has asked when I offer it, if it could, I could ensure, because I know some of the connections. So to ensure that it's with her alone. So it's a total comfort zone, because we do want you to come and fully show up, because that's how you get the best healing for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're coming with someone who you don't feel that you could be yourself with, then I would highly encourage you to do it independently, because the new connections you make are going to be so beautiful. Yeah, I really believe it's a personal choice. The biggest piece of transformation is, in my experience before facilitating retreats and attending retreats, is getting out of your environment. So workshops and day retreats are powerful, and they are transformational as well. But a couple of at least 2 to 3 days plus retreats are life-changing, because you are not, doing all this work and then going back to that abusive partner or that child who you're struggling with. You are out of that environment. You're seeing things completely different. It's allowing you to have that space to reflect, self-reflect. We have a lot of time for self-reflection, and just realize things that you may not without distraction. It's really important. And that's why I include everything in my retreats, food, accommodations. I want to take all of that out of the equation for you. I want you to come and just be healed and nourished and supported. And that's where I think the true transformation lies. So yeah, I just think people should assess for themselves. If you feel like there's something really you're challenging with and you're considering bringing your bestie, if you can't say that fully and completely, then I don't think it's best necessarily to bring that person. The other thing is, a lot of people are cheerleaders, but not always in the best of ways. It's great to be positive, but we also have to be real. And so just authentic relationship, as long as there's authenticity and you can say anything that happened in your life, because sometimes things come out of the blue that you may not want to address, or you've kind of shoved under the rug. I'm going to come and heal my mother, but I don't want to talk about that I was a stripper. Not my story, but many people's, and no judgment, love it. Have many beautiful friends that were strippers. If you are comfortable sharing that in front of that friend, then they're not the best fit to bring.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that discernment piece is very important. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it takes a couple loops around to know who you can and cannot be open and honest and vulnerable with. And that's the beautiful part of this journey, is exactly. it helps unearth that along the way.
And we have people in our lives for different reasons, right? So it's okay if that's the type of friendship you have, but you just know what it is. And you just approach that relationship for what it is with no expectations. And you can still keep them in your life, but you do it in your way that feels right for you.
Yeah, no judgment, all love.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So if people want to work with you one-on-one between now and perhaps your next retreat, how can they find you?
They can find me on my social media. So I have Facebook, it's Coach Marina. And then I have Instagram, so coachmarina.ca. And my favorite place to find me is my website, so coachmarina.ca. I'm sure you have all of the links listed, and I appreciate that. They can also email me at contact@coachmarina.ca. I offer a free connection call, so I'd love to just have a conversation or chat with anybody. If they are struggling with something, they're not sure where to begin, I would love to just have a conversation and see if there's anything that I could offer you. And if not, maybe refer you to something that would resonate with you more. So I'm no expectations, and I just want to serve and help people. And I would love to connect with anyone that resonates with my message.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Nicole. I love what you're doing, and I'm so grateful to be here and honored to be here. So thank you.
The gratitude is absolutely mutual. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Grand Rising Experience. If this episode helped, ignited, or inspired a shift within you, or left you with an experience that you can't quite put into words, then please share it far and wide, rate it 5 stars, and leave a review wherever you're listening. Your feedback helps me cultivate valuable conversations and also ensures the Grand Rising Experience reaches as many souls as possible, and it would make my heart so happy. Until next time, much love and Grand Rising.